The Fresh Economic Thinking Podcast. New ideas and analysis with Dr. Cameron Murray and Jonathan Gadir.
G'day, Cameron. Good to chat with you again.
Hey, Jonathan. Nice to be talking.
I just heard, just coming back to Australia from overseas this morning, that Albo has announced a very, courageous, shall we say, social media ban for, what is it, under 16s?
Correct. Yeah. Social media ban for under 16s. It's been all over the news today. And as a parent of a 16-year-old, I find that very, very interesting.
Okay, yeah. So you're a parent of a 16-year-old and I'm a parent of a 16-month-old. But we're still thinking about these things. We're struggling to, keep the phone out of his hands, because it's with us all the time and it's got flashing lights and, babies, toddlers love that.
Yeah.
So it's something we're thinking about. But I want to know, what's been your experience and what do you think? Like Albo banning social media, it's very, very world leading, it seems.
Yeah. Well, he's announced it this morning and said that Australia's going to be a world leader in this. And I get the concern. Let me just maybe start by saying I get it. Like the polling shows this. If you go back just a few months, in August, there was polling that something like 80% of people supported limiting access to social media for under 16-year-olds. People support licensing social media companies. Like people love this stuff. And if you cast your mind back to our conversation about misinformation and disinformation, people love controlling what other people do. So I suspect he's responding to this polling and going, hey, if we just announce something, we can iron out the details. Maybe people will like us. That's my suspicion. But I got to be clear. I don't want to sort of drop Albo in this because the coalition just a couple of months ago was pushing this very thing. So this is a bipartisan plan in Australia to ban under 16s from social media, including apparently YouTube, which I find astonishing. And I gave it a little bit too much credit this morning. And maybe I should tell you why I initially perceived it as potentially workable or potentially useful. Do you
Yep.
know
Mm-hmm.
that the Queensland government, and I think most states, have banned mobile phones in schools in the last year or
Yep, of
so?
course. Yeah, yeah. And New South Wales also is, doing that. Yep.
That that's worked really well. It's created this social norm, this expectation that you get to school, your phone's in your bag, it just doesn't come out until you leave the school grounds. And schools really struggled with this, like doing it by yourself as one school when the neighboring school isn't banning it. It's really hard, like politically amongst the parents and the kids. But if everyone does the same thing, it helps organize and give sort of credibility to each person who's trying to do the ban. So my initial thought is, hey, if the federal government's sort of putting out guidance that 16 is the appropriate age to get social media, not 10 or 12, then maybe that helps parents tell their kid, hey, you're not 16 yet. Come on, that's not the right thing for you, rather than having that argument where the kids are like, well, so and so got his when he was 10 and he got his, he's had it since birth. We're like, hey, they can do what
Yep.
they want, but this is the rule here.
Yep.
I'd love to let you do this as a kid, but hey, these are rules. Let's just do what's the right thing. So,
Yep.
but it doesn't seem like it's going to be that. Seems like it's going to be an online ID verification required prior to creating an account. And I think that's going to be weird and it's going to, I think, backfire when people realize what is actually involved in implementing such a ban. It's one of those things, sounds good in theory. I think when people realize what it will take in practice, they just won't like it. What is you're a long way off this, but
Yeah,
does what I
but
say make
can I
sense, or
just
do
dig
you?
in?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, like, so what if they don't like it? I'll get to what I've what my troubles with it, but first let's just get onto this. Like, so what if they don't like it? Maybe they didn't like the ban in the school to begin with.
The children or
Um,
the voters? Because
oh,
this is my
okay. So you're saying
question.
the
Yeah, yeah,
voters won't like
yeah,
it?
yeah. No, I think
Okay, okay.
because you're trying to make things easier for parents, and I think the
Yeah.
implementation is going to make life harder for parents, right? It's not just a bit of guidance. Oh, we're all on the same page here. You know, resist get letting your kids on social media till they're older. I think parents are going to be like, oh, I got to go and identify my child because they need to watch YouTube for a school assignment to learn about something, which happens all the time currently, right? Kids have to watch this
Yeah.
video, science video on something and then do a quiz. Very, very common. Now we're going to
Yeah.
be hoop jumping to get back to where we were. So I
Yeah.
feel like
So,
it's going to
yeah.
backfire.
See, okay. So this goes to what are their real motivations here? Because if it was just the social media that we know is harmful because of, bullying and all that kind of thing, like, and, so body image stuff. And so that would be like Instagram, that would be what
Hmm.
else? TikTok, that would
Hmm.
be, I don't know, what else are we talking about? Those are the two main ones.
Facebook,
Snapchat, I don't know.
Instagram, TikTok,
Yeah,
Snapchat, Twitter.
Snapchat.
But they
Okay.
also wanted to include YouTube.
Yeah, so the inclusion of YouTube makes me suspect, and okay, so the age verification thing, right? That that bothers me
Hmm.
because like the doing right by kids argument is a great Trojan horse for getting um for doing away with anonymity online, right? Do
Hmm.
you agree that that's a wonderful way to bypass objections to requiring everyone, because like how are you going to require just it's going to have to be everyone, some kind of like the everyone that has will have to use some kind of government ID to get on to join platforms, right? Am I
Yeah,
right here?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I
Yeah.
think that's what it's going to be. And I think that's really difficult. Like, it's really tricky. I've got a 16-year-old. He's got his license. The ID thing's really tricky. Getting a tax file number, ID stuff, really tricky. Um, and I find it really bizarre. The polling is like people hate social media. They want it censored. They want all this control, but they also want lots of iPads in school because, technology is good. Kids should learn stuff.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we've had the bizarre situation of our kids requiring iPads for school from grade seven. And at the same time, the school going, don't let them talk, don't let them have phones at school. And I'm sitting here going,
Yeah.
you just made it compulsory to have a extra large mobile phone with a different name at school. And you want us to somehow like tackle this? That was not my decision, right? So I
Mm.
think we're really muddling through on the social media and the devices situation with kids. I find it's really hard, but I think this social media ban is going to backfire on Albo despite the polling. But then maybe I'm too
Yeah.
online, and that's me
Yeah.
and my friendship network.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Even if we have
But is
kids
your
that are,
thing like, do you think most voters care
mm,
about like the inconvenience for kid like what aspect of it are they gonna get annoyed by?
well, think about grandparents wanting to check on their grandkids on Facebook and going, "Oh, you're not sending us anything anymore, right?" We're like, "Oh yeah, kids are
Hmm.
banned, right?"
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
I feel like it's one of those situations where it feels nice to say this, right? Just like we talked about in the misinformation, disinformation stuff. It feels good, but in practice, I don't think it will be. Um, and that's what the polling says. Look, listen to this headline. from
Mm.
August 19th.
Mhm.
License them, censor them, and make them pay. What Australians really think about social media.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
that's the that's what this is a political response to, and it's kind of a strange one in my view.
Yeah, YouTube. Why would YouTube be thrown in with, and LinkedIn? Why would those two be thrown in with the others? Like, not that there's teenagers on LinkedIn. Um,
There I, it feels like this is a situation where people really care and they think that there is a practical way to crack down on this, like they do think there's a practical way to crack down on misinformation and disinformation, right? We talked about this a couple
yeah.
of episodes ago. People think it's practical. And so you get this big gap between the feelings of doing the right thing and the practicalities of whether that right thing is possible or whether the attempt to do the right thing is going to be worse than nothing at all. And I feel like this is going to be one of those situations. Uh, I think I'd personally rather be in a country that let another country go first on trying to implement this. Um, but it's not going to. I'm thinking ahead to all the fights I'm going to have with my youngest, who'll be under 16, while my eldest is over
Uh,
16, right?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and maybe I should also give my perspective as a parent of high school kids that there are positives to social media. Like the kids do organize themselves, they do have their chat groups and stuff. They do share photos when they're out and about of going fishing or something interesting they've seen with each other. There are positives to it. In fact, a lot of the high school kids, I'm not sure if this is a national trend, are really into starting online businesses right now. This
Oh
is a
yeah.
real, and they promote themselves on social media. So my youngest, when he was 13, him and his mate wanted to start a basketball shorts business, getting designer basketball shorts printed in China and importing them and selling them online. So they had a TikTok page and an Instagram, and they got their samples ordered from China, and they started this little business as 13-year-olds, trying to sell shorts on the internet. Now that's a real positive, right? And it wouldn't be possible without their access to social media to just sort of drum up a little bit of interest online. So I'm really
Yep.
torn about um, foregoing any positives, even if this worked,
Yep.
as well as the negatives, and how they can be weighed up against each other.
Yeah. So I know what's gonna happen in the public square, so to speak. The any free speech or libertarian minded people um, are going to be saying that this is an excuse to do away with anonymity online. Obviously, enforcing this ban is only going to be possible with um, some kind of verification. The social media platforms are going to have to decide, do they just cut Australia off or, Australian users off, in which case there'll be like some kind of tricky workaround teenagers will do with like, oh, I'm from another country, so
Yeah, the
like there'll be
VPNs and the
VPN,
different
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yeah.
or they'll have to decide, okay, we're going to do this across the world. And you know what? Like, I know there's the establishment in the US, the one that just lost to Donald Trump. They would love something like this. Um, and yes, I'm just thinking if it's not the VPNs, maybe there'll be some other workaround that people will come up with. I'm just looking at the conversation because the conversation website that seems to be like the place to go for the kindergarten version of an argument for an issue and against an issue. So, sorry to say, but like it's serving its purpose for me today.
Oh, good.
Um, and one of the articles by Lisa M. Given from RMIT University, who lays
Mm,
out the arguments for both sides.
mm.
She's got a tweet there from, I guess, a mum. My child is 14. He has 2 social media accounts with parental permission and some oversight. We don't need governments telling us what he can and can't read and watch. That's between us as parent and child. It's an interesting one.
I've heard a lot of that online today when I gave the idea some early credit for, helping guide parents onto what, you know, might be a reasonable sort of community expectation that kids aren't all on social media, but everyone, that's
Mm.
the response I got. Here's an interesting one. Florida, Ron DeSantis, the Republican, very, very popular governor, has signed a law to give his state one of the US's most restrictive social media bans for minors. This is March this year.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
seems like it's a sort of not a left or right traditionally policy, and that's what the polling says, and that's what's happening here. The coalition supports it as well. Would you have
Yeah.
expected that if I had have told you yesterday that there's going to be a social media ban, that it was bipartisan?
Yeah, there are contradictions, like both on the left and the right on there, because I would say DeSantis was a very online kind of right-wing candidate, kind of making gestures toward libertarianism, and also like basically being all culture war focused in his campaigning for when he was aiming to be the Republican candidate.
I think this is one of those things where we're going to have to wait and see if the practicalities can match the political feeling around this topic. Because if I look at Florida, it was 6 months ago that they wanted to ban social media and nothing has happened. I think they've hit the reality wall after
Okay,
proposing
yeah,
it. So if we're going to finish with a prediction today, I'm going to predict that in 6 months this will also hit the reality wall when we all
interesting.
realize what it actually entails, and that there are benefits and costs to social media. And then if you pile on additional costs to restrict access and for parents to deal with all this ID nonsense, the whole thing, might just disappear. Or do you
If
think
the
I'm wrong, or do you think this will persist?
no, and maybe the coalition and the Greens, for different reasons, will combine to stop it as well.
You think the coalition will turn, even though they supported it not too long
Yeah, like
ago?
because they love to find an opportunity to, poke Albanese in the eye again. They'll find some reason, won't they? And then the Greens, of
Yeah.
course, with their younger voter base, have all the incentive not to be the ones like standing up to posture against it. And uh,
Yeah, I'll be
maybe
interested to
that's
see what the Greens think on social media bans, because it's kind of odd, right? They want to lower the voting age, so it would be kind of weird to go, yeah, you can vote, but you can't use social media, things like that, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so it looks like they've come out and said they've criticized the plan. It's knee jerk, lacks evidence and expert support. That not even the e-safety commissioner supports a ban, according to the Greens. So
right.
I
Yeah.
guess we'll have to
By the way,
stay tuned.
it'll be interesting to see how this evolves.
Yeah, I think so. Part of me thinks this will all disappear once everyone realizes the practicalities, but I fear that social media is it's in the zeitgeist right now, right? The social media panic. So it might rear its head again in the not too distant future.
All right. Talk soon.
All right. See you, mate.